Thank you all for coming today. This is our first workshop for 29. Joe Ryan is the director of advising and other stuff. He's going to talk to you about kind of more about advising and provide you with resources and that sort of thing. We will take questions because we want to make sure that you are equipped to do advising, which is a vital. So without further ado, one more time, it doesn't have to be now, just before you leave. And then after this is over, and after my 2 o'clock, and it's digital. So if you fill that out, it'll be open.
Of my presentation today is to kind of introduce myself to you all in the advising ways of the world. In the 3.5 months I've been in the position, I'm just starting to learn and understand the processes of our advising system that we have here. So I've spent the past 3 months kind of learning everything, working with you all and doing some triage and learning trial by fire, as Natasha said, the processes of those. So what I've been working to do training plan for on how to provide you with the skills you need for advising. As we continue to grow as a university, advising loads are changing. We're advising different types of students, and so it's important to keep up on the processes that we have going forward. A couple of things we're going to talk about. If I can work this. Oh no. Alan, to go over the philosophy for those of you who are more new, what our current philosophy is for advising, and what our quality enhancement plan is currently. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means and kind of what we will be reporting back on the advising piece. And then go over for a newer model, kind of a broad model for how we're going to move forward with providing new training based on the national model of advising, and also give you input on what you need specifically and individually to be successful. Where we're going to be moving forward for the rest of the year and kind of take some questions from you. All right, so our broad advising philosophy really puts the onus on the student and the advisor, but ultimately on the student. And so really remembering that when you're working with students is that it is their responsibility to understand their career path and towards degree completion. And so when you have the student that comes and says, I'm supposed to graduate in the spring, the class I need to graduate until next fall, the ownership isn't completely on you as the advisor to have known that. It is a joint partnership. And so we're trying to really make sure students understand that this is a joint effort in their success. So the biggest points are aiding students to discover and delineate educational and career goals in an atmosphere of mutual respect and learning. Encouraging students to think critically about their choices. I think that is definitely necessary. We want them to think critically about their choices, especially those who are, failing Gen Bio 1 and want to be a Gen Biology major. We need to have them think critically about life decisions and where they're moving forward. Helping learners explore and find resources, teaching students to be savvy and a little bit gritty, seeking out the help that they need to be successful, and not just waiting for that person to tap them on the shoulder. The students may say, well, you never came to me to help. Well, you may have 60 people and several courses that you're trying to help. And so teaching students to seek out the information for themselves and following through with action plans. So that's our general philosophy that we have. And we also, which ties into this, is we are a developmental advising. And so a lot of larger institutions who may have a lot of professional advising or whole professional advising office and departmental advising, they have more prescriptive advising where they say, here is your schedule, this is going to be it, this is what you need to be successful and hand it to you. Our approach is the developmental. We want this to be a conversation, a meaningful interaction with somebody who understands the field and the implications for moving forward in that as a career path, and using your expertise to really develop that relationship with a student. And so it is it views advising as a teaching learning relationship where you work together to assist that student moving forward in that path. And so basically for advising perspective, this is the more timely approach to advising, whereas just handing the schedule out is easier, but still making sure that the student understands what that means, because I realize some of your curriculum and program tracks are very set in stone as you move forward, but making sure the student understands what that means for them and they know where they are through the process. So that way if they have a question later, they were involved throughout the whole time. So that's what we mean through like the developmental process of our advising, which also ties to our quality enhancement plan. So in 2013, before I got here, before some of you got here, the university chose to submit to SACS, our accreditor, chose our QEP to be advising, and advising was what we were going to work on to improve as a university. Here soon, we are to report back as a university how we progressed. Did we meet the goals that we set forth as a university as advising? And we have to provide the data on that and really say, was it a failed effort? Was it successful, and how? How did it impact specifically student learning? How did we tie that back? And so what I'll be doing is assessing, where we were, and it's difficult since 2000, many people in mission, many people doing a lot of different positions. So we're going to be trying to figure out that information to make sure, we know how we measured up to what we said we wanted to do. And with that, what we said that we were going to, our learning outcomes or intending learning outcomes for advising would be students would know their academic responsibility through the advising process. They would be able to identify and contact their advisors. I understand that's always a struggle. Who is my advisor is like the quote of every day. Students will understand the importance of academic advising so that they understand the impact, the value, and that it's meaningful. Have multiple contacts with their advisor within their first semester or midway. We know that students that have successful research says, an impactful relationship with the staff or faculty member on campus in the first semester can have a great impact on them wanting to stay and retain to the spring semester, and construct a degree plan for their academic program by the end of their first year at midway. That's what we said we wanted to do. That our goals were of that. And so we're measuring everything towards what we had intended those goals to be. Specifically in those goals, we had several distinct points related to faculty development, training, and advising process. Here were some of the things that our goal was that we were going to be doing. Some of those have not been met yet. Some of those had been met yet. This is what we said that we were going to do as a university, and when we were going to do that, and how we were going to do that. So we were going to educate and train faculty and professional advisors on an advising syllabus. We have not made the advising syllabus. It's in progress. Basically drafting a form that would be readily available for students and faculty. That would be like your advising contract. This is what this relationship looks like. This is what this is going to be in our relationship as advisor-advisee. Advising resources created and made available for faculty and students via SharePoint. How many of you are comfortable in SharePoint? Yeah, so a few of you. So SharePoint is where we are moving forward to at the university, where these resources are going to be. And so that's one technology that we'll be rolling out through this part that I'll explain here in a little bit, where you'll have readily available resources to you through SharePoint. Hold ongoing student planning trainings and advisor refreshers. Educate faculty on expectations of an effective advising session, because there are ineffective advising sessions. Coach and develop low-performing advisors. That's basically following up with student responses and surveys about their advisors. Also, working, having been in student affairs for the 2 years before, taking a lot of the exit interview calls. One of the questions we get on here about who was your advisor and was your advisor relationship successful? And in a lot, the biggest component of the questions that we get are about their advisor. That's how impactful the advisory relationship is. So they don't want to tell us all, or they want to say they were great, and then they give us 2 paragraphs of stuff, and it's like, well, you ever return back to Midway? No. So you get some varying degree of information from the student, but we can tell that it is an impactful relationship through that. And educate all advisors who began advising in the past 3 years. So the advising process has seemingly been ambiguous in the past or is currently to you maybe. So as a new person coming in, you need to know set in stone, this is the expectation, and this is what I need to know to be successful. And so that way you understand how this relates as a part of, and hold ongoing training sessions for advisors and students on developing a 4-year plan. So these were our direct goals, specifically where you were to play into, that we are hoping to continue meeting and we'll be reporting on here very soon. So what I want to get into is, having been in the position for a little over 3 months, kind of where we're going and how it can help you be best at advising and be able to balance and manage everything and have the resources you need. You may have gotten an email from Natasha Ramsey that said, email Joe for everything advising. So I've been cut loose. So now I am like, I'm it. And so she's kind of put me out there to learn all of these things. But NACADA is the national advising, the global community for advising, and they have some competency and training models already put forth there, even research and best practices. And what they say is successful in training and development is 3 areas, which we'll talk about. But basically is aimed at giving resources and streamlining the readability of things that you need to be successful. And it says, the new thing is, don't hold a whole lot of workshops as the primary avenue for dispensing information because people don't have time, people have class, they miss things. And so making sure everything you do is available electronically at their fingertips 24 hours a day. Recognize people for their efforts, understand their time, give coaching, give those sorts of things. So we're hoping to implement a lot of that in a less formalized and always readily available training method. So the 3 parts are conceptual, informational, and relational. Conceptual, which we'll talk about here, is really the context piece of why advising is the way it is, why it's important, why it benefits the student, how it relates to student development theory, and all of the ingredients that actually make it something. It is, something that is researched and has a lot of information that makes it successful. And so in this component, basically understanding where we have come from in advising, understanding that it is a skill, it is something to be learned, and it can have a great effect on a student's career path and working towards degree completion. And also being equitable and inclusive, learning outcomes, expected outcomes, and the history and role of where we've come. So that's the piece that is really the foundational piece for somebody who's joining, is beginning as an advisor for the first time. Many of you have done it for a long time. You understand a lot of those components. But for somebody new coming in, they may not understand fully what those are. And so that's the conceptual component. And after this, I'll explain how these are going to be put out for you. The biggest piece for you, and the NACADA says that advisors need, is they need all the information. They need all the stuff. The questions, the information you get readily available to them. So curriculum, degree programs, institutional specific procedures and processes. Currently, right now, when a student is admitted beyond traditional, regardless, or business advantage, there's like 3 different workflows and 3 different ways that you may be notified that you have a new advisee. Some of that's from me, some of that's through an automatic message. So we're trying to put all of that out there so you understand what it means when you get a notification in a certain way. We're also working with admissions to understand what are all the different ways that we get notified or a student gets processed and they get admitted. Also the legality of advising. We're hoping to bring a speaker to campus to talk a little bit about the legality of advising issues, and there are people getting sued at universities for saying this is what you need to graduate, and the student saying I have to come back and be full time. It's going to cost me $12,000, and it's your fault, and I'm going to take you to court over it. So we're seeing that a little bit more and more for errors made on like the behalf of an advisor or the university administratively. Any community resources and technology resources, so how to use SharePoint, how to use student planning, for you, how to know all the different things with the union when you review someone's plan and what to do when you approve someone's plan. And all the questions and the clicks that you have to go through to really solidify what a student has done. So this will be in SharePoint where we hope to kind of overshare all of the things that you would need to be successful as you move through advising appointments. Everything down to you need to send your first email out to advisees. We've got an email drafted, copy and paste it, email it, go. Second email at this time, how to do those things. To try to streamline this as quick as possible because we know some of you have great advisee loads. And the last is the relational. This is really how to have a conversation with student and learning that piece. And so this is where that skill, that intentional interaction with the student comes into play, and learning that skill of having a conversation. Not asking questions that are necessarily always yes or no, digging a little deeper, trying to figure out, is this course really something that they're going to be successful in, really getting their input. So it's the conversational piece, communicating in an inclusive, respectful manner. Basically, the app can be more successful. How are we on time? Okay, we're moving good. So how do we achieve competency? So Nakata states that to be mastery of all of these competencies, you have to have all to do that. So how we hope moving forward to achieve these would be through the conceptual that all advisors will be asked to read the materials for each competency in SharePoint. So understanding and knowing that if you hadn't had that context already, there's not going to be an exam. If it is, I won't be the one who makes that exam. I don't know how to do that. And we can understand when a new person comes on, had they advised before, had they not, and kind of see what we need to do to get them up to speed so that I understand where they're coming from. Informational, advisors will understand and utilize the material in SharePoint. And so the first competency they need to learn is SharePoint. And so if we have time, I'll log in here today. For those of you who had sent some stuff through SharePoint link, the SharePoint is live, so multiple users can be on the same spreadsheet. You no longer have to send an attachment. Everybody can do things constantly, live everything, chat with me if I like, or all of those different things. And understanding university policy and program-specific information. So really trying to flesh out our curriculum maps and the policies for when people need to do this and this, so that way everybody knows dates and deadlines, because I know you probably don't like getting the email that says you need to do this by tomorrow. And then you're like, well, I'm not here tomorrow. So, so that's hard. So making sure that those things are laid out and have all the dates and deadlines so you know exactly your piece of responsibility for advising when it's going to happen. So that way there's no sudden changes. We're just trying to map out everything that you would need to know. And then relational, meeting with me to discuss feedback students and how I can help you and help you understand processes maybe that you don't understand and work through those together. A lot of you have called and said, I don't know what to do in this situation. And I'd say, I have no idea either. Let me figure it out and do some investigation, and then getting back to you. I'm learning, you're learning, we're trying to work together. And then we can say, okay, how can we make this be more effective? And also receive training opportunities geared towards coaching and advising practice. And so I want to be able to offer things for development. We have money set aside for you to develop based on things that you want. So after this program, I have only 8-question survey that'll come to you for email. 8. It's a needs assessment, just kind of gauge what you would want. We don't want to pay and bring a webinar if nobody wants to know. If you'd rather have a book or a poster, we want to figure out, kind of the things that would help you be more successful. Or maybe it is more workshops, or maybe more trainings, or individual meetings. So trying to figure out what will work best for you. So the needs assessment, SharePoint, is definitely something that I'll be rolling out, and Ellen's going to be touching on it in some other sessions later this semester. That's going to be the way of the world. So the information that I have for you all on SharePoint will basically be in folders you will have access to at all times. The kicker is that students will also have access to their own similar folders, and you will be able to see what students will see. So they will see advising syllabus, they will see policies and procedures, curriculum maps, And so you will have access to know what they see, how to use student planning, questions, frequent errors, those sorts of things. And working with IT to what that will look like, is SharePoint's going to replace some of our other platforms where we can use for information for students and faculty. So they won't be able to see your stuff, but you will be able to see exactly what students see. And then communication, I'm getting more comfortable in this position and starting to have a little bit more confidence in myself. So I hope that you ask me things that you don't know or need help with or don't understand. And because as I think those of you who've been around and those maybe are new, you all probably have some very efficient processes for advising, and that everybody does it a little bit different. And so my goal is to learn what everybody does and say, okay, we've got lots of great ways and styles of doing this. Here's some things I can suggest to new people who maybe have not advised. And so my hope is to learn those things. Let's see here. Last, before we get into questions, I'm sure maybe somebody has some questions. I've already started talking of just all deadlines. These are just a few things that are really important timing kind of right now for this semester. One, there is optional webinar incorporating. I was really interested. So you're really interested. One where we have only one login, so you have to watch it in one room. March 25th, priority registration begins. And then Eagle Preps. An important Eagle Preps, a date did change. So the June 21 was actually the week before, and they just changed it to June 21, or not just changed it, but changed it recently. So know that those are back-to-back weekends if you had made plans to be around or that. And then August 19 classes begin. So that was really fast. What questions do you all have?
Okay, this one's for me, and I can't remember the exact detail, but when I'm looking at a substitute, say math, or English, and on there it says this is like confirmed substitute, but then there might be 2 or 3 or 4 other ones that I don't know what confirmed might. And so do you take the highest one, or do you take the one that says it's confirmed?
I think that you would take the confirmed. So do you all have access to the admissions folders?
See, that's what I do, because my fear is that himself, the other part himself.
Yeah.
There are times where students tell you one thing,
Yeah.
and you kind of hold it, and you go,
So what we see is admissions uses SharePoint to create folders for every student. Every file that they get that comes in, test scores or whatnot, and they list in there what is the actual and what is reported. So I think in those cases where there's confusion, you could ask them, I could send their file over or just shoot me their score to know what's real, because they may have several transcripts.
so you're saying do the confirm.
Yeah, that's right. What else?
There's a lot of times it's.
With SharePoint, the house, where be located?
So it's all web-based.
Yeah.
So you log into a OneDrive and you use your credentials, and then it'll pop up, and then it'll come up in OneNote, and then you go to OneDrive or SharePoint or whatever. It's a little tricky to get into. Student Affairs was the first office. They shut off our network drive, so we had to save everything to SharePoint, and they've done that with others, so we're kind of moving towards that.
Is there a chance of getting like a little screen share video to kind of just send out through email and say, hey, here's how you get there?
Absolutely. Write that
Well,
down.
you're an expert. But when we do the assessment program and review, all of our work is going to be on the SharePoint site. But I'll make sure, I'll get with Joe, and when the SharePoint gets up and running, we'll make sure that there are support videos to show you how to get there. That won't be a problem at all. And we'll have to have them anyway. It's like I said, the program review process is all going to be within SharePoint.
All right, just throwing it out there, okay? I really love advising, I love meeting with students, I love listening to their dreams. But when they sign up on my board for quit time because they missed the other 3, it gets to a point where it's like somewhat counter And so last semester, I found myself, I mean, different people have different advising modes. Good Lord. And I count myself as, pretty good. That mine's not as severe as others. But so I called myself last semester advising for like about a month and a half. And so, different deans have different philosophies. And I remember, Dr. Ernesto, who was here before, Mary Elizabeth Stiver, and Ernesto went, she advising, it's in 2 weeks. Get her out of water, if they don't come, it's 2 weeks. So the idea is, look, just keep advising until we kind of get done.
So what, I think what Natasha and I would like to do is get comfortable enough where at a certain point we have curriculum things where we could just keep that person advised. If it's late again, like 3 days before classes start, those sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, I went around to all of the Midway 101s in the fall to say, you have 2 weeks to do this. And it's usually the ones with the business office holds that don't do it. They don't have a shot yet, so they know that they think it doesn't matter. And so trying to train people to do that, but, if you miss the appointment, that's on the student. But, it's like someday I'm going to send you a list of 32, 35, so then you're like, which lesson do we have to learn? But I understand that, and we can help figure out how to reach those students.
Oh, I end up giving in, but, that's because I'm pushing.
Other institutions are doing some creative things that we maybe in the future could look at, where you do group advising in the evening with one faculty with multiple people in a catch-all environment where if you miss advising, this is your shot, this is it. We've also seen schools with peer advising for like students high up in the team that actually help them advise under somebody. So there could be lots of creative things to look at, but yeah, and what they do, if they miss that, they get to a point where they'll stop you in the hall. They want to do hit and run. I don't do that. Okay. That's very dangerous. And I'm trying to tell them, we need to slow down because we're trying to minimize making a mistake. And this can financially cost you a lot of money. So we're not doing hit and run. I think that's a good conversation.
I think, I'll piggyback on John. I think last semester, and I'm wondering if it's the same reason that they missed their appointment, because they wrote it down, and then I had a bunch of students say, I can meet from 10 till 2. And I can look at their schedule and be like, you are not in class at 2:30 or 3 o'clock. And it turns out that I had a kind of a conversation with a few of them, trying to be casual about it. Why do you not think you can meet with me after 2 o'clock? And they don't think they can say to their coach, I need to take 30 minutes to go get advised. I'm like, guys, you can't. No, you can't. And they don't know. And I think it was a lot of freshmen. And so I tried to kind of encourage them and say, guys, I know you're trying to make everybody happy with you, and you have all these people in authority in your life. But it's perfectly okay with you to say, Coach, I need to go be advised. Or if you're not comfortable, have me send an email to your coach and say, so-and-so may be 30 minutes late, they need to be advised. It's a one-time fix. But I think some of our students, I think that's part of that development, all kind of, but sometimes that's the first time they've ever had to do that with us. When they come over the summer, we're kind of like, here's your schedule.
The coaches are totally fine with that, because when we get the list of people have been registered, I get that list too. Yeah. The coaches get the list.
And it's not that I don't think any coach is saying, you can't go ahead, but I think it's an issue with, they're freshmen, they just come from following so many people's rules that now they're like, whose rules come first, I don't know what to do, and they don't know who to ask. So that's just something I experienced and you guys experienced that I made it clear when we did finally get to be, hey, it's okay, and I can support you and get you out of, you won't be in trouble.
I just have an idea. What if we involve the coaching staff, saying, hey, tell them, hey, coaches, registration is coming up. Please, do we do that, okay? All right. Then maybe it's called her problem. If the coach is
says, make sure you go get advised. They might not be stopping John in the hall doing drive-by.
Just
They do
directly
listen
to
to
the
them. Oh, yeah, better than any other.
What kind of information is going to be available in SharePoint that is not already available in self-service?
To be more processing information. So how to, what's the admissions flow? So I just got an email, or I just got something from admissions and person advice. You go in and they're already been advised on something. So trying to process these curriculum maps. I know we've asked departments to have like the first 2 years lined up for curriculum maps. Those that people could see, more information to help you. Who advises specifically what, those sort of things. So a lot of things that won't be used here. Other thing are student plan. Another just thing to announce, some of you have noticed your student plan advisor load may be a little bit different than what comes through like the weekly advisor report. So John Curtis pulled the report from colleague, and then colleague talks hopefully with student planning, is how it holds and things get reported. And so we, John Curtis and I are trying to work through that to see how people come on and off of student planning. Because what happens is if a student graduates, they show up as undeclared in student planning. Didn't show up on their list. Undeclared is different than undecided. Undeclared means they've graduated or they've stopped out. So we're trying to find a way where those automatically come off without having to manually do it. Because some of you have had a lot of undeclared on there that needs to come off after every single time. Do that. So that's one thing that we're trying to fix. So once we get that settled, there should be a little bit more confidence in the accuracy that needs